Now you're live.
Okay, great. Now we're calling to order the August 17th work session for the Salem City Council. I'm Dan Atchison, the city attorney. The mayor and council president are both not with us tonight. So pursuant to council rules, we will have council select a temporary presiding officer and then proceed with the rest of the agenda. Before we do that, we'll do the roll call and Pledge of Allegiance.
Councillor Tigan.
Present.
Councillor Matthews.
Here.
Councillor Gwynn.
Here.
Councillor Vang.
Here.
Councillor Noordijk.
Here.
Councillor Varney.
Here.
Okay, thank you.
We missed Councillor Brown.
Oh, sorry about that.
Councillor Brown.
Oh, present.
All right. And do we have a motion to designate someone as the presiding officer?
I move Councillor Noordijk to be the presiding officer over tonight's meeting.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none. If the recorder would please call the roll.
Councillor Tigan.
Aye.
Councillor Matthews.
Aye.
Councillor Gwynn.
Aye.
Councillor Brown.
Aye.
Councillor Vang.
Aye.
Councillor Noordijk. Councillor Varney.
Aye.
Thank you.
I'll try that one more time. Do I have a motion to approve our special meeting agenda?
I'd make a motion to approve our special meeting agenda. Second.
Discussion? All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? All right, motion passes. Okay, any additions or deletions to the agenda?
Presiding Officer Noordijk, I move additions to the agenda. Second.
All right, are we doing a roll call vote?
I'll just say we have one addition replacing a corrected version of the presentation. We also have another addition adopting a selection of the presiding officer pro tem, and we've been given written testimony.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. All right, let's move on to discussion. Do we have a staff member leading this section?
Okay, so good evening. Tonight is the first of our financial roadmap conversations. I do want to emphasize that this work session is really about looking ahead. It was important to me and the leadership team and also the council that we have these conversations early and not wait until we are faced with difficult decisions at the last minute. We know that the city has significant needs, but planning early also gives us the opportunity to have meaningful conversation with our community and with the council about those needs, our priorities, and the choices we have in front of us. So tonight, staff will begin with an overview of the overall financial roadmap across the city's different funds. And then tonight's focus for the work session will be on transportation fund. A lot of good work went into bringing this information to you, and I appreciate the staff's work in bringing the staff report and the presentation and a lot of analysis done behind the scenes, so I appreciate their work. Our goal tonight is to give you a clear picture of where we are today, what we are facing in the years ahead, and also an opportunity for you to begin conversations together. Tonight is not necessarily the last time we talk about it. This is the starting of those conversations, and we will be coming back to council with, and we'll continue these conversations as we move forward. So with that, I will turn it over to Director Martin.
Good evening, Presiding Officer Nordijk and City Council members. Brian Martin, Public Works Director. I'm going to kick it off real quick here and then turn it over to Josh. But as City Manager Nembura pointed out, we have an overall financial roadmap that's going to be critical for the city going forward. Transportation is just one of those funds. It has been flagged as something that's very important, in fact critical, and so we'll spend quite a bit of time on that tonight. Just sharing here, we'll do an overview of the transportation fund in general, the current funding that we have, really what the system needs are. There are different options. We pointed some of those out in the staff report, but there are many others. We'll compare it to other cities and then talk about next steps. And before I get started and hand it over to Josh, I just want to thank especially Merla Alvarez and Mark Bechtel. Their teams put a lot of work into this. When you compare that data from all those agencies and all the mining they had to do to come up with that data, it took a lot of time and effort, but it really tells the story of where we are compared to others. And then Mark and his team working with engineering and others, we collect what's called pavement condition index information, but taking that information and applying it to what the needs of a street are and trying to figure out costs and how you time those things is really quite a challenge in itself. They've got a really extensive model and all kinds of different scenarios, and so there's a lot of work that went into it. But before we get on to that, Josh has got the bigger picture for everybody.
Thank you, Brian. Good evening. Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. And what I'm going to call this is a preview or introduction to the bigger conversation. We have another work session scheduled in September where it's going to talk about a lot of different funds, but I think this context is important, even hearing about the Transportation Services Fund in the context of our other needs throughout the city. So on this list, to the left, you'll see the fund. The second column shows the health signal, critical or watch. We've talked about the watch list quite a bit over the years. A primary driver and then a potential action. So we're not going to go through each of these, but this is based on the 5-year forecast presented last January. So there'll be an update in this coming January. I don't expect the health signal to substantially change, but I just want to note that it does. It is based on that data. In the interest of context, I think it's important to talk about what's driving the expenses to increase or revenues not to grow fast enough. The largest expense in the city's budget is personnel costs, so positions, people providing the services. It's certainly true in the transportation fund that we'll be discussing this evening, as well as most of the other funds. So labor and statutory rates, so collective bargaining agreements, public employee retirement system benefits, and market pressures contribute to the increasing cost of delivering services. We've all experienced inflation in contracts changing over the last several years. Revenue constraints, particularly in the general fund, but I would classify the transportation fund is a similar. We've relied on gas tax. We'll talk about that more, but it's projected to decline. And then service demand. So as there's new needs in the community, we've expanded service to meet those needs in some cases. So a lot of information on this, and we're not going to go through it in extreme detail, but the thing I want to really point out is a concentration of effort that's going to happen here in the next few years. So at the top, you'll see the fiscal year and the quarters, and the second row there shows the actual month of the start of each quarter, just to make sure we're aligning fiscal years and calendar years. And then we've grouped them into categories. So general fund, transportation, development, our bond program, the livability levy, as well as other rates, and then across the board, cost savings and efficiencies. And then on the right, you can see a legend that talks about what each of the boxes represent as far as timing. And I want to make sure I stress this is not set in stone. Likely this will shift and change as priorities emerge. But it's really like within this red box, in the next couple of years, there's a lot of needs that are reaching that critical level. So as far as community and council conversation, it's going to be really important. And then for each of those revenue initiatives, the impacted parties and recommended engagement. So some of these are a lighter touch as far as engagement. They're known issues or they have a known process, and some of them are treated more like a project with a communication plan and everything built out. And then we missed a slide, but we're all good. I would note the transportation for short-term and long-term. Those are the ones we're going to be focusing on this evening. And the terminology might be a little bit different. That might look like one effort with some mitigating factors in the beginning, leading to a longer-term solution, or it might be two distinct things. So don't get hung up on that. It's just recognizing the critical need in the short term and an ongoing need also. I'll pause there to see if there's any questions before I turn it back over to Public Works. Thank you.
Thank you, Josh. Come on back, Director Martin.
Okay. So the first thing I'm going to do tonight is start with the transportation fund portfolio. And most people just think of transportation as streets and sidewalks and traffic signals, but there's a whole lot more. And I wanted to make sure that we emphasize those things because each of those come with a cost and a level of effort that primarily is done by our own teams, but also by contractors that contract with the city. The thing you're going to hear most tonight is the street pavement and the sidewalks, because they are probably the biggest components of our transportation system and the most costly, but these other ones are equally important. And so, some of those important aspects, the traffic signal operations, we own and operate 198 traffic signals, 203 school zone beacons, 22 pedestrian crossings, and there's 85 signals in the city of Kaiser that we actually operate, although we get reimbursed those costs. When you think about signs and markings, over 37,000 traffic signs, and we're getting ready to kick off the 20 is Plenty initiative, which will add another 3,000 signs. So those signs are going to increase. We've been adding to the bicycle network. People will see more green paint out, protecting bicyclists across intersections. And then some of the easily forgotten ones, right-of-way maintenance. So we have 70,000 street trees that we maintain, and the cost of that alone is about $990,000. We also have 11.9 million square feet of right-of-way that we have to mow. The cost of that's about $700,000, and those things just get done. We also have to worry about winter storm responses, street sweeping. We'll talk more about sidewalks, and then there's a whole planning element and traffic engineering element that goes with all of those factors. Okay, I'm going to talk a little bit more now about pavements and sidewalks. And so when it comes to pavements, we're responsible for all the pavements within the city, with the exception of what ODOT maintains on their state highways. So the pavement on every other street is a responsibility of the city. And I mentioned earlier pavement condition index, and that condition index gives us a structural rating of how that street actually is in comparison to other streets. How we get that, we use LiDAR data, so we pay a consultant every 2 years to drive around the city. They've got this special instrument on their vehicle that basically takes a 3D model of all those pavements and uses all that data, cracks, alligator, rutting, all those different factors to give us a condition of that pavement. That then gets factored into this model that Mark is going to talk more about, but it gives us that index and it gives us something to compare to when we compare against others. And so some of the slides you're also going to see are going to talk about arterials, collectors, and local streets. And just as a reminder, arterials, they're kind of the lifeblood of the city. They're the arterials, the arteries that everyone uses. They take care of the largest numbers of traffic, and some examples of those are Silverton Road in the northeast, Commercial Street in the south, and Glen Creek Road in the west. The bottom category, local streets, is what we actually have the most of, but those are the streets that most homes abut up to. They see much lower traffic, but still important. And then collectors collect the local street to the arterials. And so those collectors, some examples of those would be Lansing Avenue in the northeast, Salem Heights Road in the south, and Kingwood Avenue in West Salem. When you look at this exhibit up here, we're showing basically the street, the planting strip, and the sidewalk. Those are the main elements we look at. I had mentioned the trees and the mowing is something that sometimes gets an oversight of, but it's also equally important, and it's an element of work we have to do. Sidewalks, you're going to hear tonight about 1992, because there's a difference between sidewalk that was constructed before 1992 or after 1992. We did have an error in the staff report. It was 1991, and I think we're going to see that at some point in one of the slides where it says 1991 in the history. It actually was 1992, so that was just an error. And I don't know if we need to correct that for the record right now, or that's something we can do later. So, how do we fund these assets? It's always been a challenge. And as the history will show, we've been trying to deal with this for the last 2 decades. What's happened is we've been falling behind. And I drive around Salem and I look at streets, and it's hard to find one that doesn't need some level of maintenance done to it. That could be, extensive maintenance or preventative maintenance. But I can tell you our staff, with the funding that has been available, has done the best job they could, but we're continuing to fall behind. And you'll see in a slide the difference between what it looked like, I think, in 2018 versus 2022 when we look at all of our streets. The majority of the funding that we use for street operations and maintenance comes from the State Highway Fund, and we've all seen how that fund is actually decreasing. There was a little bit of good news with the House Bill 3991, although most of it went out to a vote and failed. There were a couple elements in there that actually stayed, and so there's going to be some funding. We'll see a little bit of an increase in funding, but it barely offsets the gas tax funding that's going to be lost over time. So Josh had pointed out, costs keep increasing. So as we talk about that revenue, holding flat or decreasing, unfortunately the cost, to maintain these facilities continues to increase. And when we were looking at how do we compare ourselves to other agencies, Merla did an excellent job of getting that data, mining that data. And so we can actually see by lane mile and type of street how we actually compare to others. And I think that's important information for the council to see. When it comes to our operating principles, they've always remained the same, and that's to provide cost-effective services to our community. We do that by providing timely responses. Our goal is to fill potholes within 24 hours of a complaint, and generally we're pretty good at that. We respond to emergencies. We'll traffic control when we need to. We're out there on the streets plowing snow when the snowstorms come, and making sure that our roads remain open as best as we can. We closely examine all of our purchases and procurement processes. One thing that City Manager Nemburi started here a 1.5 years ago was this cost exception process. That is something that we look at. It goes through all of the levels of the organization before we actually hire a consultant or buy different types of materials. We make sure that we're doing it as cost effectively as possible. And we also look at doing balanced delivery methods. And so when I say balanced, it's not just the city crews doing all this work. We also use private contractors to help. And there are some things that they're better at and some things that we're better at. But between the two of us, we can get the most effective product for our community. And then lastly, we're always looking for ways to make investments that last longer. So whether that's designing pavements to last 20 years instead of 10 or 15 years, or using solar power wherever we can, specifically on our rapid flashing beacons. And we're even looking at using more solar power with streetlights now as we start implementing changes to our streetlight system. So all of those things are really best practices to try and be effective and efficient. So now for the fund details, Mark is going to take over and walk you through the important data.
Looks like you might have a question before you go away, Director.
Yeah, thank you, Director Martin. There's two things that I didn't hear much about. The staffing that you've had has held flat for 9 years, it says on the slide.
Yeah.
And I'm happy that there's new pavement that's been designed for 20 years, but I'm definitely interested in the staffing. Like what kind of stress has that put on your organization?
Yeah, it just means that we're doing equal or less because cost of materials have increased, cost of labor's increased. So as labor goes up, we can purchase less asphalt, less concrete. So the amount of work does decrease. And as the system continues to grow, we're not matching what that need is. And generally one of the first places we fall back is preventive maintenance. So preventive maintenance, you'll hear, is one of the most important things that we can do for our system. As the budgets get tighter, it's harder to do that, and we find ourselves responding more to the complaints than actually trying to prevent complaints going forward. You had a second question, too?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor and Presiding Officer and Council. Mark Bechtel, the Assistant Public Works Director over Operations. We're going to talk about pavement right now, one of my favorite things to talk about.
Mine too.
So there are so many things that the pavement does for us, and there's so many ways that the pavement can age and begin to fail. And like any asset the city owns, we have to invest in the maintenance and operation of that asset and eventual replacement of it if we want it to perform and serve the community. Asphalt pavements are no different. They require periodic care and maintenance, and if they don't receive that maintenance, then you start to see different types of failures. And so as you drive around the city and you look at the pavements, and my wife has accused me of looking at the pavements more than I should when I'm driving, but you will begin to see certain types of failures in the pavement. For example, you can see here longitudinal cracking. Those are cracks that run along the parallel to the street, and they're usually caused by the wheel loads of traffic in the wheel track or settling of the pavement. But those cracks can be fixed with crack sealing, which is rubberized sealant we put in the cracks. Transverse cracking is perpendicular cracks to the pavement, and that's usually caused by the settling of the base material, and that also can be fixed with crack sealant. Sometimes our utility trench repairs will age over time, and they can cause both longitudinal or transverse cracking. Look at fatigue cracking. You see lots of little cracks, and those little cracks get bigger and bigger due to water intrusion and the freeze-thaw cycle and traffic loads. And sooner or later, it'll become what we call alligatored pavement or alligatoring. And that's when you see the little pieces of asphalt all connected by cracks. And what that's indicative of is usually just the general wear and tear over time and the age of the pavement, the travel loads that are put on it. The oils begin to migrate, and you just see the pavement begin to literally fall apart. The best way to deal with that is to mill it out and replace it with new pavement. Bleeding is when you have too much oil in the pavement and it begins to percolate to the surface. It releases from the aggregate, and you start seeing these, looks like oily patches or tarry patches on the surface. That creates two problems. That oil is not where it belongs, holding the pavement together. It's now on the surface, and it can create a slippery surface. Again, best way to treat that is to mill it out and replace it. Let's see here. Raveling. Raveling is when the pavement begins to lose its oils, its binder, and starts to get gravelly on the surface, and starts to get rough. And one of the ways you can treat that, if you get to it when it's just starting, is to put some type of surface seal on it, like a slurry seal or a chip seal. And then finally, rutting. Rutting, you'll see that a lot on arterial streets where you have a lot of heavy traffic loads, tractor trailer trucks, and the wheel track starts to become rutted. If you don't get to that soon enough, that can cause quite a bit of damage to the base of the roadway. Again, best treatment is to mill it out and replace it. You will see some agencies will actually pave thin, little narrow strips of pavement. That's called rut paving. We don't do that here in the city. We mill it out and replace the entire lane. But you'll notice on ODOT highways they do that. They put the rut paving. Motorcyclists don't like rut paving. As Director Martin pointed out, we determine the condition of our pavement through the pavement condition index, and through that LIDAR assessment, we create a score for each segment of street, and then those scores are combined together through our GIS mapping system, and then we are able to create a composite score, and we can also create aggregate scores by street classification, so arterials, collectors, and locals and alleys, as well as by street type, asphalt and concrete. And so what we have done recently is we have switched to the AASHTO classification standard, which is the 5 categories of condition: excellent, good, fair, poor, and very poor. If you think back to our last presentation to the Budget Committee, we were still using the 3-category system. The advantage of the 5 categories is it actually matches up really well to the different maintenance measures that we have to apply. So for example, an excellent pavement really needs no maintenance whatsoever. It's in excellent condition. Good pavement needs preventative maintenance, crack sealing, surface seals. Fair pavement usually needs some kind of corrective treatment. So you're talking about milling out and in lanes, thin overlays, spot repairs for base repairs. Poor pavement, you begin to get into where you need to do a lot of corrective repairs and more pavement rehabilitation, where you mill out most of the pavement and replace it with brand new pavement from curb to curb. And very poor streets either have to be rehabbed or completely reconstructed. So our composite score for our pavements here in Salem is 61, which puts us kind of right in the middle of fair, and that's for all streets. So local streets, collectors, arterials, alleys, and the preponderance of lane miles of our streets are local residential streets. If you look at the pavement condition comparison, we do assessments of our pavement condition every 2 years. We do arterials and collectors every 2 years, and local streets every 4 years. So the 2 years that we can compare most recently are 2018 and 2022 for all streets. And what you can see is that our street pavements have been degrading during just that 4-year period of time. If you look at our excellent and good pavements, they have decreased by 9 percentage points, while our fair pavements have decreased by 7 percentage points. and our poor and very poor pavements have increased by 16 percentage points just in the 4 years between these two measurements. Our overall PCI score decreased from 68, which was at the very top end of fair, to now 61, which is in the midpoint of fair. Another slide shows another way of looking at those streets between 2018 and 2022. And again, you can see how our good and our excellent and good streets are getting fewer in lane miles and more lane miles in the poor and very poor category. If you look at just our arterials and collectors, you can also see where we have had a deterioration in our pavement condition in the good, fair, poor, and very poor categories. You'll notice a slight increase in the recent years in excellent, and that's probably most likely due to some of the bond-funded arterial paving projects that we have done. So that is an indication of when you invest, you do see an increase in the positive increase in the pavement.
So with that 2024 data, did we not get a new PCI score at that time? Because the most recent PCI score I see is 22.
We would only have a PCI score for arterials and collectors because we only do all streets every 4 years.
Gotcha. Okay.
So so I didn't calculate a composite for just arterials collectors. We could do that, but
I gotcha. That makes sense. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, my question was just about a couple slides back. You have the total lane miles, and there, it seemed to maybe there was like that one here, at least 70 lane miles added between 2018 and 2022. You'd assume they came on in excellent condition.
Correct.
So it's like kind of building that piece of the pie a little bit, but how long do they stay in excellent condition with, I mean, a minimal preventive maintenance?
Yeah, first I would say, those new lane miles are a combination of brand new streets built by new development and also annexation. So if we have annexed streets during that time, they may come into the system in any of those 5 conditions. A brand new arterial street, its pavement will usually last in fairly excellent to good condition for 7 to 10 years. So at 7 to 10 years, you might think about doing some preventative maintenance on it. Collector streets last a little longer, local streets last a little longer because they have less travel load. But a lot of our streets date back to the 1800s and early 1900s, and so there's a lot of age, especially our concrete system.
Thank you. I had a couple of questions. On the PCI score that's done every 4 years, when will the 2026 data be available?
It has just been delivered to us, and so we are doing the data cleaning and moving it into the GIS system. And so within a couple of months, we should be able to have the 26 data.
Okay, that's great. How does the increased heat we're seeing impact our road surfaces?
It can. Obviously, pavement, asphalt is very susceptible to ultraviolet rays, to heat. But the asphalt is hard at that point. So can it soften up? I guess it could under certain circumstances. You might see some of that bleeding that we showed you, where it might bring some of those oils up to the surface.
And then lastly, since we're talking about road surfaces, back on page 20, you were talking about rutting, especially from heavy trucks, et cetera. Do we have, maybe I just haven't noticed them, do we have established truck routes in town, and are those roads treated differently?
Yeah, I do believe we have truck route classification. Well, our arterial streets are truck routes, just by definition. I don't know if, Julie, do we still classify truck routes in the city? Yeah, we have designated freight routes on this on the state highway system, but really any arterial street and most collector streets have truck traffic on them.
I had a question, and I wanted to piggyback off of what Councilor Varney is saying. We have a lot more deliveries made in our city than 20 years ago, whether it's Uber and Lyft coming to town, DoorDash and Grubhub, or any of the other large delivery providers that shall go unnamed. I would imagine it would be hard to quantify what percentage of the wear and tear of our roads is due to the fact that our economy is changing, the way that people get goods and purchase goods in our area is changing. Do we have any data on the number of miles driven by those kinds of delivery trucks? Is that something a city can request?
I'm not aware of us having any data. But we do know that, for example, a fully loaded tractor-trailer truck puts the same amount of pavement pressure or wear as about 1,000 like sedans, passenger vehicles. So if you're looking at your Amazon drivers, your FedEx drivers, your UPS drivers, all of your other delivery vehicles, they're considerably less than a tractor trailer, so they may put a little bit more wear on the average, sedan. So they're somewhere in that spectrum of weight and wear and tear. But I do know that one of the funding mechanisms that the state funding committees were looking at was a potential for a fee for those delivery systems and their vehicles. So I think the state was beginning to look into that.
Yeah, because I think Colorado did that, and it generated some significant revenue, really just to offset just the costs. These are folks who are using our roads. Yeah, so we'll see, right?
We'll see. We'll see what comes out of the governor's most current task force.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Okay, a little bit more on pavement, and then I will turn it over to Merla for money. One of the things that we need to keep in mind for pavement is that pavement does not deteriorate in a straight line. It deteriorates at an accelerating rate, and so you need to catch its life cycle curve at the right spot if you want to have the most efficient lifespan of your pavement. So preventative treatments like crack sealing and surface seals, one reason why we get out and we try to patch potholes right away, all those things is to extend the life of that pavement at its best level for as many years as you can. If you're unable to do that, the next level is corrective maintenance, also very affordable. You'll notice that preventative maintenance is very affordable. Next is corrective maintenance. But once you start getting further down that pavement curve, you start spending a lot more money to make the repairs to the pavement, to the point where when you get to pavement failure, you are spending considerably large amounts of money to then repair. So if we had all of our pavements at an excellent or good condition, we would be focused primarily on doing preventative maintenance treatments. But because our pavements are across the spectrum of condition, we have to allocate our funds across all those different maintenance treatments. So let's just talk sidewalks briefly. In 2007, the City Council adopted a sidewalk repair ordinance that essentially put the city into the primary responsibility for maintaining sidewalks. Sidewalks that were constructed prior to September 1st of 1992 were the responsibility of the city to repair, regardless of what caused the damage. Once those sidewalks were brought up to cities or to proper standards, then the abutting property owner would be notified that it's their responsibility to maintain the sidewalk unless the damage, the future damage, is caused by a street tree, city street tree. Sidewalks that were built after 1992 we're automatically given the maintenance responsibility to the abutting property owner. But again, if the future damage of those sidewalks was caused by a city street tree, then the city would be responsible for doing the maintenance. And that is the same ordinance that we are under today. We started with about a $1 million a year program, and the sidewalk repair program now is at about $3 million a year in-house. And then there are some bond monies from the community bond that are being applied to sidewalk replacement as well. But as you can see, we have made some progress in turning over sidewalks to the abutting property owner, but we have a long way to go, and there's a lot more to get done. So at this point, unless you have any more questions, I'd like to, you have a question? Okay.
Yeah, I had a question just about, like I see the city crews and contractors complete an average 1.76 miles of sidewalks per year. What is the actual amount of sidewalks left that we have to do in relation to street trees? So I know you were saying that it doesn't matter what condition the panel goes in. If a street tree causes the damage, then the city's still responsible for it. What is the amount of sidewalks that we still have in existence that we're needing to kind of continue to repair because of street trees? Or are those all kind of taken care of as needed? We immediately kind of are able to get on it.
Yeah, I apologize. I don't have a number handy on that. We could probably give you an estimate if you'd like. We could provide that.
Okay.
But one thing I will point out that with sidewalk repair, I always like to characterize it as like painting the Golden Gate Bridge. You could repair all your sidewalks, and as long as we have street trees and winters and everything else, you will have to go back and start all over again and start repairing the sidewalks. It's really a perpetual maintenance responsibility. What we see right now is that we have a really big backlog of sidewalk repair. And that would be our goal, is to try to get more and more of that backlog repaired and taken care of. But you could ask me how many years it would take to get caught up, and I would say, I don't know, because there are sidewalks that we fixed in 2007 that now need fixing again. So it's really kind of a perpetual need. But we would like to reduce the backlog and make the community have much better mobility with a better sidewalk system.
Last question on this. Do you know approximately what the average cost is for a single panel of sidewalk?
Brandon, what are we at right now? $275. Okay. All right. Yeah,
Can you repeat that? I don't think the mic
Sure.
picked him
The
up.
question was, what's the average cost of replacing a 5x5 sidewalk panel? And the person helping me out is Brandon Klukas, our street maintenance manager.
And what was his answer?
His answer was $275 per panel for a 5x5. Yep. Okay.
All right, we have a question online from Councilor Brown. Take it away, Councilor Brown.
Thank you. Director, thank you for the presentation. Can you go back one slide, please? So, and I'm going to follow Councilor Matthews' thinking in regards to just our sidewalk maintenance. Earlier, when the director was doing his part, he shared with us the slide that has the house, then the sidewalk, and then the tree and the road. So my question is this: when the city plants those trees, and then the tree grows, and all of a sudden the sidewalk is, it's kind of buckled up. Yep, that's the one. And the sidewalk is kind of buckled up. Did you say that it's the homeowner's responsibility to cover that, or is it the city's responsibility to cover that?
Yeah, under the current code we have, if it's a city-owned street tree, so it's within the right-of-way, then the city is responsible to do the repairs to the sidewalk to damage caused by the street tree, regardless of when the sidewalk was built.
Regardless.
Regardless.
And so how do you know if it is a tree that the city planted? Say, for instance, it's been 15, 20 years. Like, how do you know if the city planted that tree or if the resident did?
Well, most of the time, the city didn't plant the tree. The abutting property owner planted the tree, or the developer of the subdivision planted the tree, or we may have planted the tree. But regardless of who planted it, if it's located within the public street right-of-way, it is a city street tree.
Got
And
it.
it is owned by the city.
Okay, so even in a new development, because we have a lot of those, and when the new development, when the contractors plant that tree and it's within, Salem's limits, if 5 years from now that tree buckles a sidewalk, the city covers that and not the resident. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I just need the clarity on that. I appreciate it.
All right, and Mark, isn't it true that when the city does plant trees these days, they're very thoughtful about what that tree is going to look like and how it might impact the sidewalk? It's not arbitrarily chosen. It's chosen for something that can handle our climate and other conditions. Is that fair to say?
You are correct. We have an approved list of street tree species that are specifically developed for our Northwest climate, that they be native, and then that they are somewhat less invasive to the infrastructure around them. For example, we do not permit sweet gums to be planted in the public street right-of-way anymore. They used to be a very popular tree because they beautiful canopy, stays green longer, beautiful color, but they have surface roots that destroy everything within their their drip line.
Last question, Mark. Sorry.
No, it's a work session. That's what we're here for.
All right. So I am not in any way an expert. I might literally be talking about the wrong thing completely. So do we predominantly do asphalt streets in Salem, or concrete streets, or I Googled, so I'm giving you terms I grabbed off Google, or a concrete asphalt hybrid? Like what type of street are we traditionally doing?
Yeah, in the oldest parts of town, you will still see concrete streets that were built back in the 1920s and 30s and 1940s. Because that was a very common material used then. It was actually more available than asphalt. You will also see concrete used like Kubler Boulevard in places because there's very few utilities under Kubler Boulevard. They're off to the side, outside of the pavement. So we don't have to cut into that concrete very often. So that's where we have concrete streets. When the age of asphalt kind of arrived, everything then became asphalt, and the majority of our streets are asphalt.
Okay. And the reason I asked, and I think you just kind of answered it actually, was because of the utility aspect. But because the reason I ask is it looks like concrete, according to this, has kind of the longest lifespan, and also the longest cost over time. But you're saying that basically that's not true. If you have utilities underneath, the asphalt kind of becomes the winning horse.
Yeah, a lot of it depends on how you built the street.
Oh, okay.
A lot of those residential concrete streets that we have were put down, the concrete was put down just over clay. Not a lot of gravel, not a very good compacted base. And so that is one reason why just over the great number of years, you see a lot of cracks in those pavements and settling and so forth. So when we do repair or replace a concrete street, we do try to put it back in concrete if it's a repair. If we have to replace it, we put it back in asphalt.
Okay. All right.
Okay, well, I'd like to turn it over to Mirla Alvarez, who will talk about finance.
All right, good evening. My name is Mirla Alvarez, and I am with the Public Works Division and I'm the Assistant Director over Administration. So as you can see, you've seen this slide before. You may recognize it just from last January. However, the trajectory hasn't changed. And so we wanted to just quickly remind you that we're slowly eating into our ending fund balance in the transportation fund, and that in fiscal year 29, you can see that our ending fund balance goes into negative. I think the main takeaway here is that our revenues are not growing as quickly as our expenditures, and we're just not keeping pace. The transportation fund is largely funded by the state highway funds. 72% of our funding comes from there. We did include some of the utility work, like the street sweeping and the trench repair, as you're comparing it to budget, this money is included in there. However, this money isn't necessarily street maintenance, but the street sweeping is funded through the utility fund stormwater fees, and then we have the utility trench repair that is basically putting the pavement back to how it was. And we have some federal grants as well, mainly for our traffic control center. And then we have some other revenues, and this is mainly work that we do for other work groups like striping downtown or other cities or counties or even ODOT. And then also here we wanted to highlight the streetlight fund at $2 million because when you look at the entire infrastructure, most cities also include streetlights as part of their transportation. Here at the City of Salem, we were able to establish a streetlight fee back in 2017. And so we have it in a separate fund trying to capture the costs separately. But when you think about the entire transportation infrastructure, you think about streetlights as well. As we've touched, mainly the main revenue for the transportation fund is state highway, and this allocation comes to us at 20% for cities, 30% for counties, and 50% for ODOT. It's had its challenges. However, there's some things that they've done to help increase the fund. For example, back in 2017, we had House Bill 2017 where we were seeing some increases into some investment into our infrastructure. And then COVID hit and we saw a decrease in revenue. However, coming out of COVID, you see that increase coming back up. However, from 22 to 29, you see a fairly flat revenue, what we've captured up until since 2022, and also what ODOT is projecting up into 2029. And then you do see a slight increase in 2029 there, as there are some estimates from a portion of House Bill 3991 that tries to capture some weight mile and I think it was mainly the weight mile increase rates in 2029. And so you do have that estimated projection. However, I think we want to highlight here that from 2022, it's been relatively flat. As Mark mentioned earlier, our PCI, or our pavement condition index score, is 61. And so based on AASHTO, this is around mid-range of the fair. And in order to meet certain pavement conditions or indexes and maintain our operations, which Brian highlighted earlier, it includes more than just the pavement, the sidewalks, the traffic signals, the signs, right-of-way maintenance, bridges. This is what we've established as our gap. In order to maintain a fair pavement condition, as you saw, the 2018 data had as a 68, that is still fair, and now we're at a 61, still in the fair, but on the lower end. In order for us to not see this downward trend and just kind of maintain in that fair, our operations and maintenance funding needs to be $28 million, and our current revenue is $60 million. And so we have a gap of $11 million. In order to move towards a good pavement condition and continue to operate and maintain all the other things that we do, we need $41 million, a funding need of $41 million, and with, once again, our revenue currently at 16, we are seeing a gap of $24.7 million. And we do want to highlight that this is operations and maintenance only. In addition, there's been some investments through the bonds that have helped bring some of those arterials and larger projects up to, have impacted our conditions as well. Any questions? Yeah.
Thank you. This is very helpful information. I think I can guess the answer for this, but if we set a condition assessment target in the good range, is it your position that we would need essentially $40 million or $41 million every year in perpetuity, or are we trying to get, through, a snake swallowing a gopher and then it's going to go back down, or is this just the cost of that good condition is $41 million a year?
Exactly, every year.
Okay.
Yep, until foreseeable future.
Thank you. I appreciate it because it's really important to hit home for folks what the reality of our situation is. We're nowhere, we would need 28 million just to try and provide, just to stay at fair. And we don't have that in our budget right now. So I think that's really important. I really appreciate you underscoring that, Councilor Tigan.
And I believe Mr. Brown raised his hand.
Yes, Councilor Brown.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Director. Appreciate the presentation. Would you mind going back like one more slide? Actually, go back one more and just one more. This one. So you said there's a gap of 11 million. Is that correct?
Sorry, in the other slide where we were at, that we would have a gap of $11 million to go into a fair condition, yes.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
You go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
It's like that commercial, right? Who's going to go first? Anyway, focus, Irvin. So let me ask you this. If there's a gap of 11 million and we need more revenue to come in, what's our plan?
Great, segue to the next.
All right, one slide at a time, Dr. Brown.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, that's okay. Did you have other questions, Dr. Brown?
I just have one more. And she mentioned about, when you get your bill, you see the streetlight tax that we pay for, right? You mentioned you have that. So I guess my question would be, and I don't know if this is applicable or not, so my apologies in advance. But there's also a tax that's called, I think it's the privilege tax that Salem gets. And I think it's from Northwest Natural, if I'm not mistaken. Can you or the director tell me exactly where does that privilege tax go? What fund?
Josh Eggleston, Chief Financial Officer. I think you're referring to franchise fees. Is that correct? On your bill for Northwest Natural, or?
Yes, franchise and privilege. I'm not sure if that's the same terminology or not. I just know that I see privilege tax all the time when I get the bill.
Okay. Yeah, if you send me a picture of it, I can tell you precisely what it might be. But if it's a franchise fee, we have various rates charged, 5 to 7%. For franchise providers, so gas, electric, water, wastewater, stormwater, cable, and those fees are generated often based on revenue, and then they're receipted back into the city's general fund for the use of the right-of-way.
So technically, some of those funds do go to this gap.
No, none of those funds actually go to the Transportation Services Fund. They go to the general fund. There was a time period, I think 2015 to maybe 2018, where there was a portion provided, around $400,000 from the general fund to the Transportation Services Fund. But that was discontinued when we looked at reductions several years ago.
Okay, so that's no longer. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarity.
All right, Councilor Tigan and then Councilor Barney.
Thank you. And just while we're on this slide, I think I heard you say when you were describing it that we're that the amount of, we're not getting as many resources, and I think it feels sharper to me than that, like the actual resources base is declining. Right. It's not like they're not, I mean, in the general fund, the 3.5% increase we get every year in property taxes is still a 3.5% increase. And as this revenue line tells the story, it's not even a 0.5% increase. It's just decreasing. And I think I know that is in large part because of the reduction in revenue that we're getting from the state highway fund, but I think it underscores Councilor Nordike's point that there's something bigger changing about the use of the roads and how we pay for the use of the roads, even than what we're facing in our property tax system. And so I would just, as this slide is up, highlight that, I suppose. Sorry, not a question for you.
Councilor Varney?
Thank you very much. Kind of to build on that, and you may have mentioned this back where you were talking about the revenue, Salem State Highway Fund allocation. Why, between 2017 and 2021, we had like a 50% increase, and then it becomes flat. So what is the reasoning for that?
That bill back in 2017 raised the gas tax. So the gas tax increased a couple of times, I believe, for a couple of years. So it increased the revenue. And that gas tax is every time you go to the pump, you pay a state gas tax, you pay a federal gas tax. And it's a number of cents based on the percent. So it increased, but once the increases stopped, then it just stayed flat. And what's happened is there are more electric vehicles, people are driving less, they have different means of travel. The amount of tax collected each time someone puts gas in their car has actually become flat. And in fact, we're looking at this year being a decrease for the first time that we've ever seen. I shouldn't say ever seen, at least in the last decade. So as people drive less or they have more efficient cars or electric vehicles, they're going to the pump less often and they're paying less of a gas tax, which means lower revenue.
Okay, so those incremental increases stopped. So it'd be like our property tax not going up 3% anymore for our general fund, right? Okay.
Yep, that's correct.
I actually do have a related question. Although we know a lot more EVs are on the road, I drive one myself, there are plans for them to start paying their fair share. Can you speak to that a little bit about what that's going to look like?
Yes, so those were some of the things that came through House Bill 3991 to try to address for them paying their fair share of the system. And while there were some utilization fees, there was also, you could pay by mile or you could pay an annual fee. And so there was some of that revenue trying to be captured, and I think that's where you see that increase from, you can see the graph very well, 2029 and 2030, you start seeing some of that. However, once again, the allocation, right, coming back to the cities is only 20% of trying to capture some of that utilization.
So kind of in the same vein of thinking of Councilor Teigen and Councilor Nordike, obviously some of the way that our roads are used are different than they traditionally were. And so I know Uber was mentioned. And so with public transit, like just Chariot's our largest public transit, obviously in the area, do they contribute back to our road maintenance in any way, or they in some way pay back in this? They have kind of some of the largest vehicles on the road that are doing that same type of ride share.
We don't have a separate, funding.
Okay, so they don't contribute towards this in any way?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you. I want to follow Madam Mayor's question about the EVs. When people charge their EVs all throughout the city, you said that currently we're not receiving any funds for that. That's coming like when?
It's part of the House Bill 3991. I don't have that information in front of me at this moment. But
Well, and the only reason I ask is because I know Councilor Nordyke and myself and some other folks that are there, we sit on the legislative committee, and, you know, all across the state, we are gearing up for the long session. And so I guess my question is this like on our list to do when it comes to just finding out how we can get more revenue? Like, are we going to be having this conversation again just to make sure that we can have funding given back to the city of Salem for folks who are charging up their EVs all across the city?
Yeah, the League of Oregon Cities, of course, represents our interests at the legislature as well as the city's own legislative lobbying efforts. And one of the things that they are looking at is to make sure that everyone pays a fair share of their use of the road, so that the weight mile taxes that freight pays are appropriate, that the percentage that passenger vehicles pay is appropriate, and then the percentage that EVs and hybrids pay is representative of their use of the road as well. So that is a goal of the League of Oregon Cities, and I believe it'd be reflected in our legislative priorities as well.
Okay, so one final question. You know, when we have new developments and, you know, all the big trucks show up with all their equipment and they begin to build, you know, whether it's an apartment complex, floor by floor, but they have to bring in a whole host of materials, and they're always on big trucks. Do those contractors who's doing the building, do they contribute back to the use of our roads and the damage that they do to them?
Yes, they do. If they're commercial diesel trucks, they pay a weight mile tax. If they're less than that, then they would just pay gas taxes through their normal purchase at the pumps.
And those funds slowly trickle down to us. Is that what you're saying?
Through our allocation of the State Highway Fund.
Got it. Thank you, sir. I appreciate it.
All right. And so now we wanted to highlight, and we've talked slightly about some of these things already, but how did we get here? So the state highway revenue is not keeping pace with inflation. When we do see an increase, it's 0.4%, which we know with cost of living adjustments, that's not keeping up with that inflation. The increased fuel efficiency and the growth of electric vehicles, and the city also doesn't have a local gas tax, which other cities do have, and we'll highlight that in a little bit later. We also have property tax limitations. We have restrictions in Oregon, and when we're seeking levies or bonds or other revenues to fill that gap, we are competing with other entities that are also needing that property revenue. We are a growing city. Our transportation system continues to grow with the new development, and we just see an increased wear and tear on our roads. And our resources haven't been able to keep pace with our maintenance need. And our costs continue to increase. And just last year, with all our PERS increases and our cost of living adjustments with our contracts, our material costs went up significantly during COVID. And we still continue to see that general inflation increase.
Yeah. I think we're trying to ask this in a couple different ways. And when I see the under growing city, increased wear and tear on roads, I mean, from the staff's professional perspective, are our roads being used more than they have in the past? Are they this is a tough word to say for me, deteriorating at a rate that is more than we've seen? I mean, I think colloquially, I think you're hearing us say like, something's different about the way that our roads are being used today than there was 10 years ago. Does the data bear out in our condition assessment? Because I see the condition, that pie chart in 4 years, and we're shifting that much from fair to poor. seems pretty surprising to me, and I'm wondering if it's more than just, colloquially what we see with our eyes.
So a couple of things. So as you pointed out, Presiding Officer Nordyke pointed out, there's a lot more delivery trucks using the roads, and we don't have a number with us about how many vehicle equivalents that is, but it's definitely more than an average car driving on the road. So more of that traffic, which is something we hadn't seen, probably before 10 years ago, that we're seeing a lot of now. Anytime the city grows, there's more cars on the road. So for those people that are in far west Salem, far south Salem, the far northeast, when they drive into town, there's that many more vehicles now that are driving on the roads inside of that development or more in the core area. So we definitely are seeing an increase of traffic, and we are seeing more of the delivery trucks and some of the different types of vehicles. Do we have a way to relate it to our pavement decline? I don't think we have that right now. That would probably take more years and information. Each street is on its own curve. Mark had pointed out that deterioration curve, and so depending on the traffic, it's definitely going to go quicker, but I don't think we have that data, at least not readily available yet. But it's definitely going to contribute.
I guess I'd just like to, and I think we're going to, actually I'll wait because I know we're going to get there. Thank you.
Yeah, I just want to say I Googled it, and according to the internet, Colorado charges a 31-cent retail delivery fee on orders shipped by motor vehicles to a Colorado address containing taxable goods. So it's 31 cents per order, and the revenue helps fund Colorado's roads, bridges, and transit infrastructure, and the amount raised per year generates between 75 and 112 million annually in state revenue. Just FYI.
Alrighty. And so we've talked a little bit about our history. We did have in 2002, we had a streetscape utility fee that was going to construct and maintain the sidewalk system, street trees, street lights, right-of-way landscaping, and kind of direct that funding to those specific, so that we could direct more of the state highway funding to pavement maintenance. However, when it was enacted in 2002, it was then repealed by referendum in 2003. And so then what we did is we had our Save Our Streets to try to mitigate this referendum, and we had some franchise fees gradually going into the street fund. However, some of the pressures in the general fund, this didn't continue due to that. And so we also, as Mark mentioned, we had the sidewalk repair ordinance in 2007, where we're trying to turn over some of the sidewalk that was in good condition, but some of the newer sidewalk, and then just take on anything that was prior 1991. We have the Keep Salem Moving bond in 2008, where a portion of the funding was used for R&R and sidewalk infill. And then we also adopted the streetlight fee in 2015 to fund maintenance and operations and use streetlights. And so that helped relieve the transportation fund as well. And then now, currently in 2022, we have the safety and livability bond that also has some funding for pavement, bridge, and sidewalks as part of our 2022 bond.
I would just note the pavement R&R, $18 million in 2008, bought us a lot more than $22 million bought us in 2022. I'd be curious to know how many lane miles we were able to do in 2008 versus 2022. People might see those and be like, oh, we're buying more. And something tells me we bought substantially less.
We don't have those numbers.
Is that a yes?
I mean, yes, ultimately.
Correct. We don't have those numbers handy, but there is something that has changed the nature of how we have to pave streets. And that is state law now requires us, and federal law now requires us to bring the corner curb ramps up to the most current standards whenever we do any kind of pavement treatment that goes from curb to curb. So about a third or more of the cost of every paving project now is just bringing all those corner curb ramps up to standards. It's a good thing. It's great for mobility, but it has dramatically increased the total cost of our paving projects.
Is that the reason when the city redid the street in front of my house, they didn't go curb to curb? They did 2 lines and left about 3 feet that weren't done. Though I will note they did all the ramps as well, but that's just curious that if it goes curb to curb, you have to do the whole thing.
Correct. I don't know exactly what happened in front of your house.
Yeah, okay, that's fine.
But
sorry to put you on the spot, but that just stood out in that moment.
But there's another regulation that we have to follow, and is if we as a city pave over a certain amount of square footage, we have to, with our own crews, we have to then report to the state why we didn't contract that work out. And so our in-house paving crews are very limited on the stretches of roadway that they can do. Our in-house paving crews are highly efficient. We don't have to earn a profit. We don't have to pay mobilization. We are exceptionally good at local street paving. We don't try to take on arterial stuff. That's for contractors. But it does limit the length of any one paving project that we do, which may or may not have affected your home.
Yeah, sorry, it's inappropriate for me to bring up something like that in this, so I apologize.
That is okay. Can you explain for us, we use a lot of terminology that I think occasionally would benefit from definition, just for the folks watching home. What is sidewalk infill, and how is that different from sidewalk replacement? I think we know what sidewalk replacement is, but infill might not be as obvious.
Yep. I'll take that question. So sidewalk infill is what it sounds like. There's no existing sidewalk. So you'll have blocks where, and sometimes you'll see it, you'll be walking down the street, you got sidewalk, and it just ends for some reason. Development never required that sidewalk to be put in whenever that development happened. It may have been prior to the existing one, and then you can go further down the street and there's sidewalk again. Infill closes that gap. So that's what we call infill. Replacement is where we actually have sidewalk that's existing, where the joints have become separated a significant amount, or there's tree roots and the sidewalk is just not transversable, I guess, would be the way to say it. So that's where we actually replace the sidewalk and look at tree roots and some of the other things. So existing sidewalk versus not existing.
Do you recall offhand what our total infill budget is for this current cycle?
So the infill is really through that bond program, and $6 million out of the $300 million bond were for sidewalk infill, and I believe the replacement was.
Oh, I see it on screen, but I was wondering if there was any additional funds we have budgeted for sidewalk infill in addition to the $6 million from the bond.
I don't believe we have anything else for infill. It's really all replacement.
And the reason I mention this is the one who represents South Salem.
Yeah.
I have this conversation with neighbors every time. There were so many beautiful parts of South Salem that were annexed in with no sidewalks. You could spend all 300 million of that bond only on South Salem. But of course, that wouldn't be fair or equitable to the other wards. But I always like to remind folks that, no, we have 6 million total for the entire city. And that means, no, your street is unlikely to be selected because we use a scoring process to make some very, very hard decisions.
Alrighty. So, history. So when we compare ourselves to other entities, Salem is spending annually less resources per lane mile. As you can see, Salem over on the left-hand side. These are budgeted operations and maintenance budgets for other cities, comparable peer Oregon cities, and over the lane miles that they maintain.
Is it, I don't see Eugene or Portland on that list, and so is that just because we don't have data on those two?
Yeah, we don't have data on those specifically.
Okay.
Yep. Oops. Okay, and so then we took a step back and looked at, okay, well, what are other cities doing? So in terms of how they are funding their transportation, comparing ourselves to other entities, and this revenue is represented as a percentage of revenue, not the 100% look funky. But we do start with our base. All the cities have that state gas tax funding that they have there in the green. And we also have some intergovernmental or internal, as I mentioned earlier, work for other work groups or with other cities or counties. However, the purple here represents some sort of fee, whether it be a street fee, a pavement fee, a general transportation utility fee, even sidewalk fees. And so what we wanted to highlight here is that there are other funding sources that cities are getting or funding their transportation. And we also see a few cities that have a local gas tax, such as Tigard and Milwaukee and Eugene. And those are that dark red at the very top of the graph.
So what decides the amount of state gas tax you're going to get? So like on this slide, if I'm looking at Eugene, and they're obviously our most comparable in size, they seem to have a larger allocation of state gas tax than we do. I can't imagine that we have, I mean, I don't know, maybe it is true that we just have more EVs in Salem than Eugene does, but Eugene is kind of known for being the environmentally friendly city, and so I'm just curious why we would get lesser of a state gas revenue.
It's allocated, the city portion is allocated by population.
Isn't our population arguably identical to theirs, if not on some things larger?
We trade back and forth over who's the second largest city.
I see.
But we are slightly larger now, I believe.
And this is percentage of the revenue that they get. It's not like their allocation.
Not their allocation.
Yes.
I see. Okay, so of their entire spending that they do on their transportation funding, I get it. My bad.
Correct. No worries.
Councilor Brown.
Thank you. Madam Director, you shared with us about the purple, and Salem doesn't have any purple. Were you also, maybe I was reading into this, but Salem doesn't charge any fees for our streets. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And so I can imagine that Madam City Manager is probably wondering, like, what exactly is Irvin going to say now? So are we entertaining the thought that down the road we want this kind of fee?
And so we will walk through that in the next slides.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll be quiet.
Councilor Tigan.
Yeah, before we go there, I suppose, I am curious about some of these other, the franchise fees and the general fund subsidies. As I see it, I mean, and good for Lake Oswego and Bend that they have enough money in their general fund that they send some to their transportation fund, and I guess we've done that in the past. But the franchise fees, I do think it feels like there's a bit of a nexus there because, and I guess I'm trying to test my comprehension. When I charge my little battery in my EV, I'm paying a franchise fee for the electricity that's coming over the line and going into my, filling up my, so it sort of seems like some part of what people used to pay in gas, they're now paying in electricity, and some small part of that electricity is a franchise fee that we've chosen just to send to the general fund, as opposed to here. Do you know how these other cities are using their franchise fee, or which part of the franchise fee is going to the transportation fund? Has anyone made that connection?
I think it's a really good question. I think we could look it up. I think one of the things about franchise fees, and one thing we lobby to make sure stays, is that they're unrestricted. So it's really challenging to put an unrestricted funding into something dedicated like transportation, which is why it kind of goes in and out in some cases. So I don't know about these particular instances, but usually what you see is when you have unrestricted funding, it goes into the general fund just for general expenses. So for these particular instances, it might be specific programs or subsidies or something something special. I know the property tax base might have something to do with it in some cases.
Yeah, I guess I would just clarify that I'm not personally advocating for a system in which we make the franchise fees more restricted, but just that we actually have discretion on where the franchise fees go.
Agreed. I think in the ideal world, if there was a new franchise fee or something with a strong nexus with the right-of-way, the natural fit would be transportation. Agreed.
Okay. And so when you look at the different revenue, the revenue mix in that previous slide, and then looking at other local revenue options, we have things that other cities are doing. And so local option fuel tax is one of them. Once again, applies to gasoline and diesel. It does require a vote or an election vote to implement. But I think the main thing on this one is that it is still tied to a declining revenue source. In 2018, the Sustainable Services Revenue Task Force recommended that the city explore this local option fuel tax. And then, I don't know what the numbers would be now, it would be, it was 6 cents per gallon with a local option gas tax would provide approximately $4.8 million in revenue to the fund. As we saw in the previous slide, Eugene has a local option fuel tax. It is a small percentage of their revenue. And so when you're looking at a larger gap of $11 million, yes, the 4.8 helps, but it is still tied to a declining revenue source. There are also specific vehicle registration fees that can be that can go through the county, can be allocated to both the county and the cities. We also have a variety of different types of utility fees, whether they be street utility fees encompassing the entire transportation system. There are street maintenance specific fees for existing infrastructure only. There's pavement-specific maintenance fee just for pavement, and then it would include the markings and the signs and the ADA curb ramps, as Mark mentioned earlier, that are required with the pavement. There are sidewalk-specific maintenance fees, even urban forestry for that tree canopy. There's also options for local improvement districts, which assess the improvement cost to the adjacent property owners, and also general obligation bonds, which we've been doing. But Eugene, for example, who doesn't have some sort of utility fee, also does larger pavement, routine pavement type of bonds. And so that cost would also be towards the homeowner's assessed property value. When we think about our local transportation funding source and what makes up most of their funding, we see that the utility fee is kind of one of the most popular ones there. And as you can see here, a lot of cities have had this fee. It could range anywhere from $4 to $18. And the thing I want to highlight here is that a lot of these cities have had this fee for many years now, some far as back as 2004. And so they are, and these are, the fees that you're seeing here are single-family residential rates.
Back, maybe one slide back to the revenue options. Do cities in Oregon have the authority to come up with their own vehicle registration fees? You listed county vehicle registration fee, but could the city establish a vehicle registration fee?
I'm not sure. We'd have to get back with you on an answer to that. I think the county is the way that's commonly used, and then that kind of goes back to the cities from there, but we'd have to look that up. I'm not sure, and I'm not sure Julie Hanson may know. Okay, so we can get back to you on that.
Yeah, I mean, I'd be interested to know that. I'm trying to look through, and this is for the benefit of the council. I mean, I'm trying to look through this local transportation revenue options and think about what about it captures what's different in, you know, what's changed about vehicle use in the last 20 years. So that's one idea, that just a city vehicle registration fee by type or something like that.
Well, Councilor Tigan, the thing that I notice about these is that they don't, most of these wouldn't capture users driving in town who don't live in town. So it wouldn't capture all of the delivery trucks that we mentioned earlier. So, I mean, yeah, I'm not sure which of those would include them. Are there any on this list that would encompass them?
The local option fuel tax, especially if they're, but not if they're EV.
Okay.
But if they're gasoline, the weight mile comes through the state highway revenue, or in similar, this fee would increase as those costing, or sorry, as that revenue increases as well.
I'm just curious. I don't know how this works, but I know some entities are so big that they have their own gas station on site. Are there any private entities in Salem that have that? And if, I assume they still contribute to the gas tax, even if it's a privately owned gas station, is that correct?
Correct. That's
okay.
correct.
But if delivery trucks are electric, and increasingly they are, then you again get that same diminishing return.
Well, this is maybe more of an education thing for me. So I'm not a big truck driver. And so tell me exactly how it works. So I understand if you have the gas tax, you have to pay for, obviously, however many gallons you get, you pay a certain amount of tax. We kind of get a revenue back through that. And then I understand this weight mile tax. And so, because it's my understanding that kind of that is the mechanism that we use to tax the large trucks. And is that just based on every mile that they travel, they have to track, and then they have to basically pay us a fee or pay the state a fee that we trickle down to us? So is that right?
Yes, that's correct.
And is that whether they're EV or whether they're gas?
Well, the weight per mile, there's a portion that is fuel and there's a portion that is weight, and so you wouldn't capture some of the EVs through the fuel
piece. Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, I think that would definitely be something then to look at for the EV ones. I guess one other thing I want to highlight is when we talked about this, I think back in May at a meeting, and it is about the CDBG. And so we had talked at that time that there was basically a little over $900,000 that wasn't really allocated to anything specific. We knew we wanted to spend it in subsidized housing, but we hadn't really picked a project or anything else. And so kind of sitting here doing the math, I mean, knowing that can be one of the potential options for that is to reallocate it over for building and repairing sidewalks to be ADA compliant, as well as sewer and water upgrades in underserved areas. And then kind of seeing the fairly minute numbers that we actually have allocated towards this on an annual basis. So for instance, if we allocated that to the sidewalk infill, which I'm not sure if that is one of the allowable uses, that in itself is a 15% increase just in what we currently have allocated. And in the actual sidewalk replacement, that's just over a 10% increase. And that one's undeniably an allowable one. And so I think that's another piece of not just looking at what new revenue can we start providing, but where can we start allocating other dollars that maybe, I mean, at this moment, that particular almost $1 million is not actually put into any specific project. It's just kind of sitting there hoping a project comes along. And so it seems like this is a need that we're not addressing appropriately, and we should probably be looking at that more aggressively.
Councilor Brown?
Thank you. My question is, So, Madam Director, when I look at the list of revenue options, and I'm going to just conclude that there are no more options, like this is the list. Would that be a fair assessment? Like, are there any other options to raise revenue that are not on this list?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that this is an exhaustive list. Sorry.
Yeah, this is not an exhaustive list. These were some of the main ones that we saw other agencies were using, but this is not the only way to generate revenue.
Okay, so Mr. Director, here's my question. So the very top one, the local option fuel tax, that's the one that has to go to our constituents to vote on, but none of the others, which means the council can have a motion to discuss what those would look like and possibly bring those forward. Is that correct or no?
General obligation bonds have to go to the public for a vote. So our safety and livability bond, the $300 million bond, that's funding a part of the sidewalk replacement and some street work, that was through a vote of the people. Local improvement districts generally need a vote of the neighbors. So if you were going to go in a neighborhood and install a new street or new sidewalk, the property owners would have input on that, and there would be a vote with them.
Okay.
So it's kind of a difference. I think generally the fees are a little bit more something that the council could enact. The registration fees I'm not 100% sure of, but I did get clarification between the last question and when I stand up here now that cities can't do it on their own. It would have to go through a county.
Right. Well, the only reason I asked, Director, is that, we have quite a few options, and obviously there are some that have to go to the voters, and there are some that the council can make a decision on. I'm just wondering, should we be looking at other ways also to bring in additional revenue?
I mean, we could certainly do that, and when we get to the end of this presentation, one of the recommendations on next steps is to get some additional input from the Finance Committee on what paths we should start looking down. So, there's a whole smorgasbord of options, and what do we feel is best for the city to investigate further, because, we saw in the slide with the history, there's a lot of work that goes into each one of those initiatives, and so we kind of want to try and focus on where we think the Finance County and the council would like us to look further.
Okay, thank you.
Well, just for the record, I'm not in favor of a local gas tax. I hearken back to when Councilor Jose Gonzalez was on our council, and he reminded me that there are a lot of folks who need a car to get to work. And there's some real equity considerations that he raised that still stick out to me. Purchasing EVs is out of range for a lot of people financially. There are many folks who can work remotely, but there are a lot of other jobs where a gas-powered, individually owned vehicle is the only way to fulfill your job duties, and you cannot work from home. So I have real concerns about imposing a tax only on passenger vehicles when, from what I've observed, a lot of changes in our transportation is not generated by passengers. It's generated by other forms of commerce in our community that is here to stay. When I knocked a lot of doors earlier this year, I was struck by how many of those doorsteps had a dedicated box for their deliveries. That used to not be a thing, and it is now universal.
So the other thing we wanted to highlight here is that, and we kind of highlighted in the graph that had the yellow and the green and the purple on the fees, but that there are different things happening at the same time, mostly like the city of Milwaukee that has a street fee, but also has a local gas tax and is also doing some of their transportation through bonds. And so it's not just one thing. that is funding. And when we look at the entire infrastructure network, it could be a variety of things, even street trees. And so Corvallis, for example, having that urban forestry fee to fund the street fees, that's money that can then be redirected to pavement or sidewalks. And yes.
Yeah, maybe I'm going to finish the question I had about franchise fees. And I'm thinking about them a lot right now because I get so many emails about our expanding use of our right-of-way for fiber optics. But I know that we charge those companies, is it part of the franchise fee is a percentage of the money that they make, right? Or it's a percentage of their take-home, or that's some basis for it. Is that right?
Yes, it can be anywhere between 5% and 7%.
Okay, so the thing that I think we're talking around and trying to figure out, and maybe we need some more time to work on this at the Finance Committee, is that the change in the use of the streets that we're talking about is not just different types of cars or heavier cars or delivery trucks that have EV batteries which are heavier, so it's also that people and these companies are using our streets to make a profit. Whereas in the past, they had a building and we drove to the building and we paid a gas tax when we bought the gas to get to their building to buy the stuff and then take back to our house. Now, the city's infrastructure is the artery of their profit. And so when I think about, is there a way to capture what's different in the 21st century than all of our 20th century funding models, I think that's the thing I'm most keyed into, is that just like if Easy Fiber or Hunter or someone wants to use the right-of-way to generate a profit delivering data, I feel like all these people should be paying something for using our right-of-way to deliver whatever. What did I get yesterday? Razors. I mean, whatever it is, they're profiting on it, and they're doing it on the back of our maintenance program. So the thing I'd like to talk about as a council, and maybe first as a finance committee, is if there's no way to, we should get creative about it, and we should move faster than the state, because when the state starts doing things, they generally take away our decision-making authority to do stuff. And I think we should also think about if there's a way to use our utility billing system that also maybe gives us a way to rebate fees back to residents to help zero in on who's using the streets to make a profit and who's just using the streets to get by in their everyday life.
And so I didn't go into this too much on the different types of fees when it comes to a street utility fee or a pavement specific, but a lot of these are using traffic impact information. And so you're assigning a classification to a facility, whether it be FedEx or UPS or some of those package deliveries, based on the impact that they are having on the system. And so that's where these fees try to capture some of that, and you're not tied to the gas tax, and you're trying to capture some of the EV stuff.
Well, I think that I would highly suggest that we investigate that approach more, because I think differentiating who's using the streets and for what purpose is a rational construction for a fee.
I would like for CFO Eggleston to come and talk about the franchise fee on the fiber optic companies. Josh?
Yeah, so for the new fiber companies, they are assessed a franchise fee. There's a minimum fee just for having the fiber in the ground, and that's what we're seeing right now, just an annual fee. I think it's $10,000. Once they're generating revenue, then they pay on a percentage of the revenue. So we will start seeing that at some point. I'm not aware of any receipts yet.
Thank you, and I appreciate that clarification, and I don't mean to single out any particular user of the right-of-way. I'm just saying how we and generally lease the right of way for organizations to run their business out of.
Alrighty. And I think so some of those conversations about, you mentioned the funds, the $900,000, I think those are kind of things that we can start looking at. What are some short-term solutions versus long-term solutions? And so we recognize that there is a long road ahead of us and that these initiatives take a while. And there's things that we could be doing early on to engage the community, to look at alternative solutions to kind of do some early fillings of gaps, but also a long-term, what does it mean long-term? What are some different, patterns that have changed in the way that we utilize our network? And so we know that there's going to be some long-term and some short-term and some long-term engagement that we're going to have to pursue. And so right now, what we're thinking about in terms of next step is that we are either working with the finance committee to select a few of these options to research and evaluate or come up with new ones. Having some sort of community surveys to kind of understand what, I guess, the impact could be to the community based on some of these options, and implementing some of those engagement strategies, open houses, engaging in advisory committee groups, and then continue to track the legislative actions at the state level. And that is the end of our presentation.
Thank you, Merla. We are here to answer any questions. I did want to tag on to that last statement about tracking what's happening at the the state legislative level. We suspect something is going to happen, but we don't think it's going to make up our difference. So even with it, we're going to need to fill the gap. And I think our hope is that we don't have to fill the whole gap because the state does play a role also. So we want them to do their part, but there's going to be a delta left over that we have to consider.
Thank you, Councilor Nordyke. Can you characterize the, just even colloquially, what the state of the counties are in, whether it's Marion County or Polk County? Like, are they in roughly as rough shape from, we know they must be in a rough shape on the revenue, that's where we're at. I mean, and we swim in the same pool, but condition assessments, that sort of thing. Do you have a sense?
I don't have a sense directly. They do get a larger share, so they get 30% versus our 20. However, we know the state, through their outreach they did over the last couple of years have told us the problem they have. We know what our own problem is, so I would assume the counties have something similar. But I could certainly reach out to Polk County, Marion County, and get a little bit more information on where they're at.
Yeah, I'm just, all ideas on the table of what kind of partners they might be interested in a county assessed vehicle registration or some other thing that would require city and county coordination due to the checkerboard of our management.
Yeah.
Other questions or comments, folks? Councillor Vang.
Thank you. So in preparation for tonight's email, I was reviewing some of the public comments that were submitted. And I think this is a question for Mr. Eggleston. We had some public comment in regards to the critical and watch list on slide 12. I just want to make sure I am understanding that we'll have a further discussion about, what's critical and what's on the watch list in September. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I just wanted to clarify and make sure I'm tracking where the conversation is going. Thank you.
Councillor, thank you for that question. Part of that also is engaging the community in these discussions too, because there is an impact, and we want to make sure that we do that homework and engagement ahead of any kind of changes.
Thank you.
Any further questions or comments? Going once, going twice. All right. Adjourned.